The
We
cruelest
all
jokes
face
are the ones
challenges,
dressed
but
up as
together we can make
opportunities,
a
and the 8
difference.
kids in the back
Yes,
row of
we
Millfield
can.
Middle School's auditorium understood that perfectly when they dared Rosie Campos to sing at the Spring Talent Show. They had done the math on it. Rosie was 12 years old and wore the same 3 shirts on rotation and brought her lunch in a plastic grocery bag because she didn't own a lunchbox, which was the kind of detail that middle schoolers notice with a precision that adults have mostly forgotten how to access. Her mother cleaned houses in the neighborhood, including several houses whose children attended Millfield, which was a private detail that had somehow become public knowledge in the way that private details always do in a school of 400 students. Her father worked 2 jobs and still couldn't fully close the distance between what the family needed and what they had. She sat in the second row in every class. She answered questions correctly when called on and then seemed to fold back into herself afterward, occupying as little space as possible, as if she had calculated the exact minimum footprint required to exist in a room without drawing sustained attention. She had learned that lesson the hard way, in the particular school of thought that is taught exclusively by other 12-year-olds. The dare was issued on a Monday. By Wednesday it had traveled the full social ecosystem of Millfield Middle School and arrived at the ears of teachers, who exchanged looks in the hallway but said nothing direct, because they weren't certain what they were dealing with yet. Rosie said yes. That was the part nobody expected. They had assumed the dare would land on her like a weight and stay there, something she'd carry around until the humiliation quietly expired. They had not anticipated that she would walk up to the talent show sign-up sheet on the bulletin board outside the main office and write her name down in handwriting that was careful and unhurried, as though she'd been considering it longer than the dare. Her music teacher, Mr. Delgado, saw her name on the list and felt something shift in his chest that he couldn't immediately name. He had heard Rosie sing exactly once, 6 weeks earlier, when he had stayed late to reorganize the sheet music cabinet and she had been waiting in the hallway for her mother to finish cleaning the school's administrative wing. She hadn't known he was there. She had been sitting on the floor with her back against the wall, a battered paperback open in her lap, and she had been singing something quietly to herself. Not performing, not practicing, just singing the way people do when they are completely alone and the music is too present to keep entirely inside. Mr. Delgado had stood very still in the doorway of the music room for a full minute and a half before he realized he hadn't moved. He found her the next morning before first period. "You signed up," he said. "Yes," she said. "Do you have a song?" "I've had a song for a long time," she said, and the simplicity of it was so complete that he didn't ask a follow-up. He offered to practice with her. She came to the music room Tuesday and Thursday after school for 2 weeks, and what happened in that room during those sessions was something Mr. Delgado would describe to his wife in pieces, over several dinners, because the whole of it was too large for a single telling. Rosie Campos sang like someone who had been storing something enormous in a very small space for a very long time, and the release of it was not explosive but controlled, precise, devastating, the kind of voice that doesn't announce itself but simply arrives and rearranges everything in the room. She had chosen a song her grandmother used to sing. Something old, something that moved between English and Spanish in the way that some of the most honest things do, when one language alone isn't sufficient for what needs saying. She had adapted it slightly, made it fully her own in the way that great singers do, not by changing the notes but by meaning them so specifically that they become inseparable from the person performing them. Mr. Delgado told her she was extraordinary. She looked at him with the steady, unsurprised expression of someone who already knew something was there but had never been certain anyone else could see it. The talent show was on a Friday evening in April. The auditorium held 300 people and it was full, the way school talent shows fill, parents with phones raised, younger siblings squirming, teachers stationed along the walls with the resigned goodwill of people who know the next 2 hours will be uneven but will contain at least one genuine moment. Rosie was the second to last act. The 8 kids who had issued the dare were in the back rows with the particular electric anticipation of people waiting for something to go wrong. They had told enough people about the joke that there was a current of expectation running through several pockets of the auditorium, a low-grade collective readiness to witness what they believed was coming. She walked out alone. No backing track, no elaborate setup. She had asked Mr. Delgado if he would play piano for her and he had said yes before she finished the sentence. He sat at the upright piano at stage left, and Rosie Campos stood at the center of that stage in a dress her mother had altered from a second-hand find, altered so carefully and beautifully that 3 mothers in the audience would later ask where she'd bought it. The auditorium had that specific low hum it carries before a performance, the shifting, the coughing, the half-attention of a room that hasn't yet committed. She opened her mouth and committed it. The hum stopped. Not gradually. Immediately. The way a room goes quiet when something real enters it. In the ordinary social calculations everyone was running simply pause, because the brain redirects everything available to the task of receiving what is happening. Her voice filled that auditorium the way light fills a room, not by overpowering the space but by reaching every part of it, finding the corners, finding the people in the back rows who had come to watch something fail. It was clear and warm and heartbreaking in the way that only voices are heartbreaking when they carry something the singer has actually lived. She sang about leaving and staying. About loving a place that doesn't always love you back. About her grandmother's hands. By the second verse, there were parents crying. By the bridge, Mr. Delgado was playing with his eyes closed because that is what musicians do when something is happening that is larger than the performance of it. When she finished, the silence lasted 4 full seconds. That particular silence, not the silence of confusion or discomfort but the silence of 300 people who have just received something and need a moment before they can respond to it. Then the auditorium came apart. Rosie stood on that stage and accepted it with the same composure she brought to everything, with the contained grace of a girl who was not surprised by the quality of what she had but was perhaps surprised, a little, by what it was worth to other people. In the back row, a 12-year-old boy who had issued the dare was clapping with everyone else, not with the mechanical obligation of someone managing appearances, but genuinely, because even at 12, in the back row, he was not immune to what had just happened. He would not apologize that night. But he would, later, and it would be one of the things he remembered about who he was becoming. Her mother was in the 3rd row. She was not crying. She was very still, the way people are still when something they have protected and believed in and carried quietly for years finally stands up in a lit room and proves itself to the world. Her hands were in her lap and her eyes were on her daughter and her expression was the most complete thing in that auditorium. Rosie found her in the crowd after and walked directly to her, ignoring the teachers and the parents and the other students who wanted proximity to what had just happened. She sat down beside her mother and leaned in, and her mother put an arm around her. And they stayed like that while the auditorium emptied around them. 2 people who had always known something was there, finally on the other side of the world knowing it too. Mr. Delgado made 3 phone calls the following week. By June, Rosie Campos had a full scholarship audition at the State Arts Conservatory. She wore the same dress. She got in.